Ideas that occur to you, please note down on the post-it notes, because what we want to do, as you've seen in the agenda, it is to look at targeting new business opportunities. We don't want to just have a list of companies or a list of prospects at the end of this. We want to actually see how are we going to go about actually getting into these companies, or is it a case of having to make introductions across regions, different colleagues into different offices, because of the issues and the trends that you're hearing today.
Activity. Recently we've seen just this week that the largest trade association in the US on pharmaceuticals have announced that they are actually going to look to support financially insurance schemes that the government are going to reimburse on. And similarly in the EU, for the first time this month, we've seen that the European pharmaceutical manufacturers are going to tie in with the European institutions and co-fund research.
Is food safety and recalls, food safety and chemical safety. And increasingly, you're seeing through the globalization of food supply that a recall in one market doesn't impact just that market, it impacts the global food supply, whether that be melamine in dairy in the Chinese context, or whether that be listeriosis in prepared meats or dairy products in North America, and the international regulatory process. And they can, quite fundamentally, kill the company. You end up, if you lose faith.
Chlorotenical and another one. I mean, these are the two great ones in the European Union. As I remember when I was working here, the hunt to find chlorotenical residues of chlorotenical or nitrofuran. And I remember one of the real difficulties that we had was that some laboratories were becoming ever more sophisticated, particularly in the Netherlands, and they were able to find smaller portions. So there was a race to find the smallest nanoparticle of this, and then once it's present, it's banned. Now you can imagine there was a degree of controversy when it went public like that, but in fact we did get to the point where 0 equal 2 or 0 equal 3, whatever it was. And maybe this is something that needs to be looked at in terms of lobbying regulatory authorities around the world to try and get some kind of a floor that consumer groups and scientists will agree that's a level of exposure that is in fact 0 from the health point of view.
Everything has to be seen with the Copenhagen, so the issue of burden sharing, China saying to US, knowing first, and then how do they play the negotiation until the end of the year will be key for all of us practitioners, public affairs. Second trend, regulation. So I'm still a fan of the advocacy, lobbying techniques, going and changing regulation. So good thing for us is there is a lot in Europe. There's a lot of regulation coming out. So I would say the major areas for us to think about are the area of energy efficiency, sustainable consumption and production, transport and management of natural resources.
Global marine, and they lay the cables between the wind farms?
If you go offshore, you've got to connect them up.
Oh, sure, offshore.
Yeah, and then you've got to bring the power into shore somehow. So those are kind of businesses. Yeah. Those are businesses that can now argue for support. Those were businesses that used to live out in the market.
That perhaps we're not looking at, or if the energy or nuclear lobby is not really being more active, and we're not seeing that in Brussels. Or if we should be a little bit more aggressive in trying to speak to these people, saying, look, we should be doing more things. I don't know. I simply don't know if that is an issue in Brussels, and we could try to get more business out of that, Brussels or elsewhere.
Yeah.
Do find their way into the US. They aren't really sold as European ideas, but at the moment really the initiating factor is Europe in many of our areas, and it's then brought into the US.
You know, in the and before they can even win anyone over, they've got to do something about their reputation. And the old strategies of the past, whereby resistance, the onus of proof was that you should come and mess in my patch, has completely changed. The onus of proof, the precautionary principle which applies to chemicals now applies to financial services.